Good afternoon, or at least it will be afternoon when you see this. Today is the 15th of July. I'm in Poole in Dorset, which is a little place that we've been for the last couple of days. Sadly, we have to go back later on. But I just thought I'd take the time today whilst we're here, and the beach is about a quarter of a mile away, to talk about something that I think that needs to be said. That is the cars used in CI5, the new professionals. Now that I've taken those glasses off, you can see just how red I've become over the last couple of days, but we'll ignore that. Plenty of exotic locations in the new professionals, such as South Africa, where they did a good amount of filming, and they also did some filming in the United States of America. Unlike the original series of professionals, where they never went abroad apart from some stock footage. CI5 New Professionals is something which really isn't talked about very much these days. It's not been seen by many people, and there are some cars used in it. There were 13 episodes actually made, and let's get a little bit further into the history of the series now. As most of you who watching this video will know, The New Professionals is actually a sequel to the original CI5 The Professionals, which came out in 1977 and was broadcast until 1983. In 1997, a company called David Wickes Television, David Wickes being one of the original directors who worked on The Professionals, actually managed to get the rights to make a new series of The Professionals, and they called it CI5 The New Professionals. This is something which not a lot of people know about, because all the major networks in Britain turned it down. ITV, Channel 4, BBC, not interested, and even Channel 5 actually. And eventually the rights to broadcast it in Britain were picked up by Sky 1, and it was broadcast towards the end of 1999. Unlike Mark 1 Productions, who had a special relationship with London Weekend Television to make the original series, David Wickes Television, or DWTV, didn't have a relationship with any of the major broadcasters in Britain, so they were an entirely independent production. They were sponsored by various companies, such as clothing companies and vehicle manufacturers, but they didn't have the sort of clout that LWT did. And so the series was popular in some places, but it never achieved a great deal of popularity over in Britain, for the simple reason that when the episodes were shown on Sky 1 in 1999, satellite television was not as popular as it is now, and the episodes were actually cut quite comprehensively. The other thing is, of course, to bear in mind is that none of the original characters from the series appear in The New Professionals. The new characters are Colin Wells, who plays Sam Curtis, Kal Weber, a Canadian, who plays a Navy SEAL, who's called Chris Keel. Lexa Doig, who is probably the most famous of the younger actors in The New Professionals, plays a character called Tina Backus. Woodward plays Harry Malone, who is basically like a sort of Callie replacement, although he's not the same character. And a chap called Adrian Irvine, who I actually have the privilege of knowing him. He played a character called Spencer, although Spencer doesn't really get anything to do. It's quite funny. Adrian has done all kinds of work over the years, but really his character gets nothing to do. It's quite funny. Yeah, that's one of the problems with The New Professionals, is that you don't recognise anybody who's kind of there, and the people who are replacing the actors from the original series, they either don't get anything to do, like Adrian Irvine, or they're just not as strong a team, and that's really the case, sadly, Colin Wells and Kal Weber. They are probably decent actors, but they don't have the same kind of chemistry as Lewis Collins and Martin Shaw. Edward Woodward's okay, but he's not the same as Gordon Jackson, and that's really the problem. Lexa Doig, she's all right, but she kind of it's just trying to make up for the fact that the show's, 20 years newer and they need to have a lead female character. It doesn't really do anything that interesting either. Is it worth watching when you buy the DVD set? I don't know. If you're a real completionist of the professionals, then maybe, but for most people, I would just skip it. One of the deliberate decisions in order to appeal to an international audience was the fact that CI5 now is not just an organisation that actually has a remit to look after Britain. They actually have to look after the whole world. And so there are stories set in the Pacific, there's stories set in America, there's stories set in South Africa, and of course there's plenty of ones that just take place in Britain or specifically in London. A lot of the people who worked on professionals are back. David Wickes, Ray Austin, who were some of the directors, Laurie Johnson and Brian Clemens were obviously people who worked on the Avengers and the professionals and the new Avengers, and they are both sort of executive producers on the series. Brian Clemens also writes some of the episodes of the new professionals. So there's definitely a degree of kind of talent there, but it's just kind of wasted. But anyway, I must stop talking about the series itself and talk about some of the cars. And there's actually not that much to talk about because there's only 13 episodes, but some of the things in there are quite interesting. One of the things that was quite clear in the mid-1990s was there was a great deal of nostalgia for series made in the 60s and 70s. Running on Hot Coke, Deceased, The Champions, Thunderbirds and The Avengers were all very popular at the time. And of course, so was The Professionals. And in 1995, the Nissan Almera GTI was advertised on television in like a Professionals type spoof with characters playing kind of Bodie, Doyle and Callie lookalikes. And then similarly, there were lookalikes for Regan and Carter and Haskins in a sort of Sweeney spoof, which also actually was with the Nissan Almera GTI. And Nissan obviously was so good at marketing for these sold series that they were asked to provide some cars for new professionals. The two cars they supplied were a 1997 Nissan 200SX, which kind of is very sort of Capri-like. Ford weren't making a rear-wheel drive coupe at the time. They were making the Probe and then the Ford Cougar and the Puma, but these cars didn't have the same kind of muscularity, I'd say, as the Capri, whereas the 200SX definitely did. And Nissan supplied a press car for filming, and that's the car that's most seen in the new professionals, which is R874UBW, classic Nissan press plates. Now, halfway through the series, they changed the Nissan press plates for some generic fake plates, and the one on the 200SX was R857MCY. It seems that Ford were also quite keen to have their cars featured in the new professionals, and in one episode, which is called Souvenir, Mishit, I do apologise, Mishit. In Mishit, you see them change the Nissan for a 1997 Ford Mondeo ST24, which is the post-facelift Mondeo. It only appears in one episode. It's got a fake plate on it, which is R739MCY. I don't know why they changed them around or something. It doesn't really make sense to me, but there we go. There's also a Lexus GS300, which Harry Malone uses in the second episode. It's called Phoenix, which is P976APC. That again is a classic sort of Toyota or Lexus press plate in this country. You also see Nissan Terrano 2 at one stage, which is R661UHV in an episode called Scorpion, which guest stars Michael Brandon. There's also a couple of American Fords in the series when they go to, I think it's like South Carolina or something like that. In Glory Days is 1996 Ford Mustang. In Choice Cuts, there's a 1998 Ford Crown Victoria LX. It might be a Mercury Grand Marquis, I'm not sure. In Orbit, There is a Mercury Grand Marquis 98 model. They don't really interest me. There's lots of other American cars in there as well, but this is a British channel and I'm not that big into these 90s American cars, so we'll skip over some of those. What I'm more into is the fact that there's a Lotus Esprit V8, a Lotus press car in an episode called High Speed, which is R473AAH. There's also a McLaren F1 GTR racing car in that episode that makes it a lot more interesting than usual. Land Rover also clearly supplied some press cars for them, and Harry Malone uses one of those in a few episodes. It's a 1995 Range Rover P38. That's on a fake plate as well, so I don't know what year it is or what engine it is, but it's there. Mercedes, I think, also supplied a couple of press cars. One of them's in the first episode that's called Back in Business, which is a 1997 Mercedes C8 180 Classic. I don't know why they supplied a base level Classic, but I think it's supposed to be a higher car, so that makes sense. That's P554 FJB, and good old Spencer, he gets to drive a 1997 Mercedes V230 Ambient, like a mobile office type thing, and that is R48 LGC. Just to sort of mop up some of the ones I haven't talked about yet, in Souvenir there is a car chase between a BMW 518 and the Nissan 200SX. That's a sort of decent bit of action. The BMW is wearing fake plates, but we think it's a 91 BMW 518 ISE. Also in Souvenir there is a Mazda Z-Dos 6, probably a Mazda press car driven by the plate on it, R804 AKL, those are really rare now. And also in Souvenir there is a Ford Scorpio Ultima. There's one in the first episode as well, but it gets crashed, and so it's not, well, maybe you like seeing the front end of the Scorpio redesigned, I don't know. I've never been too decided whether or not I like the sort of last of the Scorpios, but yeah, they're certainly distinctive cars. So I hope you found that video to be informative. I don't know if any of you have actually even heard of the New Professionals, let alone seen it. So please don't forget to leave a comment below and like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. There are probably more TV series I need to talk about as well. There's lots I have done, but there's probably more to do. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. And if you wish me to source a car